Welcome back to CMS Connected. I'm your host, Tyler Pyburn. Time for the CMS Insider. And the question is, are you ready for the GDPR? The answer, no, we're not. Now that actually was offered by the majority of participants who attended DCG's webinar on the European Union's recently adopted General Data Protection Regulation. Now the question of readiness was more than just kind of a catchy title from these guys at DCG. They actually really wanted to understand where organizations are today with their knowledge of the GDPR, and more importantly, their initial assessment of their readiness to comply. Scott, explain this to me, because I don't quite understand it just yet. We talked about off camera. It sounds crazy, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
Kind of explain it for our viewers.
Sure, I will. I think that it's really scary right now that many are not talking about this more. This should be on everyone's minds, and it's not yet, but we want to put it on yours. Tim Walters on Digital Clarity Group's team is an analyst, and he's been writing about this and talking about privacy and specifically the GDPR for a while. What it is essentially a new regulation that, as Tyler said, was passed recently. It takes effect on May 25th, 2018. So we've got a little less than 2 years to prepare for it. But it is a really wide implication that basically says that for anyone that does business with a citizen of the EU, which I guess maybe now no longer includes UK citizens. Anyway, that makes it a little bit easier, just got easier. But for anybody that does business with anyone from the EU, essentially, we have to honor their data privacy rights, essentially. They've just gained a whole lot more rights. So basically, if you've done any work with them, number one, you can only use EU citizens' data for exactly the explicit purposes in which it was intended. So you cannot be using it for other purposes. So we can't use it for email blasts or marketing or cross-pollinating with some other purposes. You can only use it for what they gave it to you for. Number two is that they need to be able to port their data. They need to be able to take it back. If at any point I buy from Amazon and Amazon has, captured my likes and my interests, I need to be able to at any point say, Amazon, forget that I ever transacted with you. You need to take that information out of your system and give it all back to me. That is a huge, huge, huge implication. And specifically, because they want businesses to take this seriously, they are making the fines much more akin to the way that Switzerland handles their speeding tickets. If you've ever gotten a speeding ticket in Switzerland, you're a lot more poor because they base their speeding tickets on a percent of your income. The GDPR, likewise, will be a percent of revenue, up to 4% of an organization's revenue. Top line revenue is at risk if you violate GDPR regulations.
Think about that though for a second. I mean, really stop and think about that. Think of like the Walmarts,
Exactly.
right? We're talking $150 billion companies. 4% of that?
$6 billion in that particular, if it's $150 billion, I'm not sure that's but if it's $6 billion, yeah. They don't want to receive revenue from this. They want businesses to be so scared by this, which is why I'm surprised that it hasn't been on everyone's mind, because it is coming in May of 2018. They want people to be so scared by this that they do not violate this privacy and trust that they've created with folks.
So, Scott, I mean, I'm a video guy, but I'm a video marketer. So I look at marketing and everything we talk about on the show. Even today, we talk about a content-driven website.
Yeah.
Is this the end of kind of marketing as we know it? I mean, that's what it seems like to me, because you can't do it.
Yeah, so I think that it certainly changes marketing as we know it. I mean, as we talk about on this show many times, we are trying to be much more, it's all about creating that personal conversation with the buyer or just whoever your marketing audience is too, context driven, all of those things. This is not saying that you can't create a personal experience for somebody, but it is saying that you can't create a personal experience in an experience that they haven't given you permission to use that personal data for. So, for example, we mentioned Coveo's new search engine tool and how it is based on the wisdom of your crowd.
Well, I was going to say, that's what I wanted to talk about next, was the vendors, because this is the part that is really nutty to me, is this is what they're building their business off. That's their product line.
Yes, it is. So let's go there and then we'll get back to that. I'm sorry, you're right. The huge implications on the brands, but let's talk about the vendors. So a Coveo, as an example, who is creating a whole new search product that basically make your search results smart based on the information they also have about your crowd.
Okay.
right? Your crowd, which might be me, me as your friend, I didn't give Coveo or anybody using Coveo's products their permission to use my data to enhance your search results. I gave them my data because I wanted to go and buy some product. That's the only lane they can swim in with that particular data. They can't use it to go enhance your search result. So, and at any given time, I need to be able to say, give me that back. So the implication on vendors, the Adobes and the Sitecors and the Marketos and the many vendors that are out there basically building their tools based on algorithms using data, and not just the person's data, but other data around there, are vast and significant, both in terms of, again, whether or not those algorithms are viable for those who are transacting with them from the EU. So first, even being able to identify that somebody's from the EU, then how they can use that data. And then certainly advertising as we know it is completely different, because advertising is all about you're getting advertisements from companies that you never gave permission to advertise to you because they got that information somewhere else, right? So advertising as we know it changes. So really big implication. And then the notion of, like, think about an SAP who has data running through their system about particularly in their finance system and in the ERP system and in the all over the place, that they need to be able to, at any given moment, allow their clients, so the Walmarts of the world, to be able to say, we need to be able to take Joe Schmo's data and give it all back to him and remove it from our systems. What kind of implication is that on a vendor? Huge.
Yeah. Go back to the business, though. I cut you off. Apologize.
Yeah, no. And I made the segue wrong. But so think about, again, a Walmart or a Sephora, that Arthur was talking about earlier. The ability to now, so those who are in the US and think, oh, I'm not in the EU, I don't need to worry about this so much. They are, in fact, affected by this, because certainly most of us are global and you're selling to folks from across the world. So everybody is basically affected, number one. Number two is, again, if we are creating experience built on data from our customers and we're trying to use that data to try to go get more customers, or use what we know about those customers to go cross-pollinate and offer them other products that they didn't explicitly ask about, all of those implications are vast and huge. So there's a lot for brands to go look into with this, because the fines are really huge. Tim Walters gave, in a recent webinar with us, a really good analogy about this. He talked about it as, it's like if you lend me your car, right? If I say, hey Tyler, I want to buy, what kind of car do you have? Is it nice? Is it worth me getting it?
It's a pickup truck. I'm a redneck.
Okay, all right. So pickup truck, I want to do a little bit of moving, right? Yep. And so I want to borrow your pickup truck. Now, implicit in that is that I have to use that to basically go do my move, right? I can't use your pickup truck and go drive 200 miles away and back, right?
You're going off-roading, you're not.
Right.
Yep.
I can't go off-roading with it. I can't go, use it to go pick up my football team or something like that and get mud all over the back of it and return it to you that way. I certainly can't go lend it to somebody else, right? And nor can I go profit from you wouldn't want me to go run a business by...
Also, you have an Uber moving truck with my...
Exactly, with your car. So it's the same sort of thing. It's the spirit of our agreement now they're putting into the letter of the law and saying you have to honor the spirit of that agreement. A consumer is like the lender of the pickup truck, in that they are lending their data for a specific use for a period of time, not to be used for other reasons, and certainly not to be profited on from these businesses.
That's just, this whole thing is just nutty. And obviously, people aren't really looking into it enough just yet based on the answers that you saw. So with that in mind, you had mentioned just a few seconds ago, there's an awful lot for things for people to start looking into. What are the next steps, really?
Yeah, and Tim gave up 6, so I'm going to borrow from his 6. Number 1 is sound the alarm. Like, this is a really big point. And whether you are a vendor watching this or whether you are in a brand and you're watching this, sound the alarm. And make sure that folks know about this. Number 2 is education. You need to go get some. I'd like to say that Digital Clarity Group is a good source of that education. You can watch our webinar and replay. We're running a lot of these things, but there's a lot of information out there about it, although not as prevalent as you might think. Conferences, etc. Create a cross-departmental working group. because you're going to have this, obviously those from marketing and IT and sales and all across your organization. You need to get a good good working group together to be able to go and evaluate this. You need to take stock of where are you capturing data today, in what systems does it reside, how are you using it, all those sorts of things to even just understand the implication for you. Then plot that roadmap. What do you need to change? What do you need to do differently between here and there? And then his final one was even investigate new ways to capitalize on this. So, specifically for some vendors, there might be some really interesting ways that they can be first to market to help companies become compliant, that sort of thing. But I think there's actually ways for how can you be profitable and compete actually with GDPR wind in your sails.
Wow, I think we could probably do 7 different shows on this.
You really could, and the implications are vast. It does change a lot of the landscape, and it's not talked about very much, and I really think that it should be.
Wow, wild stuff, to say the least. There's no question about it.